this important meeting today. My name is Brianna Wesley. I'm the assistant principal at STEP. And today our focus is conducting a comprehensive needs assessment to address the academic performance of our economically disadvantaged and our at-risk students. We know that economically disadvantaged students are students that participate in free and reduced lunch. And we know here at STEP, all of our kids can receive free breakfast, lunch, and a snack every day. And our at-risk students mean that they're in jeopardy of failing or they're performing under grade level. So we'll be discussing teaching and learning gaps, specifically targeting third grade multiplication facts, as this has been identified as a critical area for improvement. Before we dive into our discussion, let's take a moment to introduce ourselves. Again, I'll start. I am Brianna Wesley, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating with all of you to develop actionable strategies that can help our students succeed.
I'm Jana Schaefer. I'm the principal at Hillcrest Elementary. I've been in this role for 4 years now, and I've seen firsthand the challenges that our economically disadvantaged and at-risk students face. It's crucial for us to work together to find solutions that are not only effective for our students, but sustainable. I'm really interested in hearing everyone's perspectives and ideas today.
And good morning, everybody. I'm Jocelyn. I'm the district math coach. I have been working for the district for over 6 years now. My primary role is to support math instruction all across all grades. I've seen various approaches to improving math skills among our students, and I'm here to share insights based on data and best practices that we have found effective. And I'm particularly focused on ensuring that our interventions are equitable and culturally responsive.
Hi, I'm Cheyenne. I teach third grade here at Hillcrest. This is my 4th year teaching third grade at STEP, and I've noticed a growing gap in math skills, specifically multiplication. I'm looking forward to discussing how we can better support our students and ensure that they have a strong foundation in math, which is critical to their success.
Hi everybody, my name is Ruth Pineda. I am also a third grade teacher. I've been teaching for 2 years here at STEP, third grade. I've developed a passion for finding innovative ways to make math managing. Sorry. Can I redo it? Yeah. Hello everybody, my name is Ruth Pineda. I am a third grade math teacher. I'm so sorry. Okay. Hello everybody, I'm Martha. I am a third grade teacher. This is my 2nd year here teaching at STEP. I've developed a passion for finding innovative ways to make math engaging for our students. I've noticed that many of our students struggle with multiplication because they don't have a solid understanding of basic math concepts. I'm eager to explore strategies that can help bridge these gaps.
Alright, so thank you all for the introductions. I want to start by providing some context for our discussion today. We have all of our data here. We have our taper report of our economically disadvantaged students, particularly in third grade, who are underperforming in mathematics. To give you some specifics, 32% of our third grade students are meeting expected grade level expectations in math. And this is a significant drop from the previous years, and it's highlighting growing concern. What's interesting is our reading scores. We know reading comprehension is not the issue because our reading scores are always typically higher than math, so it's not that they're not comprehending the problems, but we know, me being a former math teacher, that multiplication is one of those things that builds upon one another. So year after year, if they're not understanding those multiplication facts when they get to 4th grade and 5th grade, and the years ahead, again, it grows upon each other. So multiplication is one of those things that's huge in 3rd grade. So to give you a little bit of our demographics about STEP, we have 3 campuses. We are at the Hillcrest campus specifically. We serve grades kindergarten through 8th grade, and we have about 569 students that are classified as economically disadvantaged district-wide. We have about 308 students that are identified at risk at STEP, and we know that specifically in 3rd grade mathematics, 65% of our 3rd graders are at the approaches level, which we know is not bad, but we want to try to take that percentage and get them more into meets and masters, because at our meets level, 32% are at the meets level, 19% are at the master's. So we can take that approaches, move more to masters, take the approaches and move it to meets. They can meets and move more to the master's level. And so we know that when it comes to benchmarks, we take 2 interims each year. We use the interims that TEA has made for us, and we know that the rigor is there because it's very aligned to STAR. And typically the trend we see is the students, for example, that are mastering the 2 interims, they typically master the real STAR. And so we have those 2 interims, and then we have a mock STAR in March right before the real STAR. And again, it's very aligned, and we know that the rigor is there and able to help the students get where they need to be. Also, we know that we require, like all of our teachers, you guys are doing quizzes every week to kind of understand where the students are and if they retain that information throughout that week. Because we know benchmarks, that's several weeks worth of content that they've learned. So we have to figure out a way that they are retaining that information as the weeks go on. So you guys have implemented those weekly quizzes in your classroom. 8.3% of our students are in the special education program, which is not that many. When we look at our district-wide, we have 18.1% of African American ethnicity, 70.1% of Hispanics, 2.1% of whites, 8.4% of Asians, and then 1.2% are 2 or more races. So we have a very diverse population that we serve here at STEP Charter. Also, another interesting thing is we also have a very diverse group of teachers and staff that works, amongst our 3 campuses. And I think our families really appreciate that because we can relate to, all the kids that we serve here. Our teacher retention is very high here. We keep teachers year after year. We have teachers that have over 15 years here at STEP. And that's another thing that's very important because those teachers know year after year what the students are need. They're very up to date on what TEKs are being taught and what students need to learn when they go from one grade to the next. For example, Ms. Gaines has taught multiple grades here at STEP. So having to jump from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, you kind of know the difference now of what they've learned in 2nd grade and what they need to know now in 3rd grade. And that makes a huge difference. Same thing with me. I was a math teacher in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So that was 3 years being able to know what those students need to get to the next grade level to be able to succeed. So we know that mastering multiplication facts by the end of 3rd grade is critical. It's a critical milestone for students in math education because it sets a foundation for more advanced math skills in those later grades. However, our current data indicates that a large number of students are struggling to achieve this on their benchmark. And again, multiplication is one of those things that builds upon each other year after year. It's memorization. It's one of those things, once you learn it, you memorize it for the rest of life. And I think you guys probably can attest to that. So today we're going to focus on identifying and teaching and learning gaps that are contributing to these challenges. We'll discuss barriers to student performance and collaboratively develop a targeted action plan to address these gaps. I'd like to start by asking Jocelyn to provide a brief overview of the district's performance trends and any insights you have on specific challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, thank you, Brianna. Looking at the district-wide data, we can see a few key trends that are contributing to our students' struggles with multiplication. One of the primary issues is the foundational skills that students bring with them from earlier grades. We've noticed that many students lack fluency in basic addition and subtraction, which are essential for understanding and mastering multiplication. In addition, there's a noticeable disparity in performance between different student groups. For example, economically disadvantaged students and English learners are consistently performing below their peers. Now, this could be due to a variety of factors, including limited access to resources, the language barrier, and also these students can typically have less support at home outside of school. Another trend that we've observed is that there's a decline in engagement and motivation, particularly in math. Students often find traditional methods of learning multiplication like rote memorization and drills to be boring and disengaging. So this lack of engagement can lead to a decrease in practice and reinforcement, which is crucial for mastering math facts like you mentioned earlier. And so from a district perspective, we need to consider these trends when developing our strategies. It's not just about teaching multiplication, it's about building a strong foundation in math and taking the learning process, and making the learning process engaging and accessible for all of our students here at STEP.
Thank you, Jocelyn, for that overview. I want to piggyback on, because you mentioned that we have a decline in engagement and motivation among our students. Could you share more about what specific strategies other schools have used to successfully improve engagement in math? Are there any examples that particularly stand out to you?
Oh, great.
I've noticed in other schools that a lot of times when there's incentive reward systems for completing certain things, maybe like a certain amount of iReady lessons in math, or what the Legends of Learning, like specifically with that math program, the kids themselves are earning like tokens,
Right.
and once they get a certain amount of tokens, they can buy things in like the online store. So like, I think the fact that programs like that are developed because they know that that's kind of what motivates kids, to reward and incentive-based programs. So it's nice that there are already some programs that exist that have that in place. Because we found a lot of success with our iReady reward system from last year, and so I'm hoping that that'll continue to help our kids feel motivated to complete iReady lessons so that they can earn those weekly prizes.
Yeah, I was, to add to that, I think that's a big component in student engagement, is like this day and age that we live in. Kids are really into like online gaming, and so when you can bring that into the classroom, your kids are going to be engaged, right? Because it mirrors the games they play at home. So I think that's something that we've tried to do this year, is look for programs that are game based, but you know, obviously our curriculum
Keeps aligned.
and so we've been seeing success thus far with that, incorporating basic math facts, but while the kids are playing a game.
Yeah.
So that seems to really motivate the students.
And like we said, technology is a big part of our world today, and gaming specifically. So why not give kids an opportunity to do something they love, but also be learning at the same time? Just like us as adults, we have things that we like to do. So why not try to incorporate those things, but they're still learning. So I think we do a good job here with that, especially like you said, we've implemented the iReady rewards this year, and Legends of Learning. We do that as our kind of during dismissal while students are, heading out the door, eating their snack, but they're still learning. So there's no minutes throughout the day where they're not learning. It's just, it might be game based, like you said, but they're still learning and hitting those T's that they need to know. So.
I think another strategy that helps motivate and engage students in math is when it can be related to real world. I know that when you were a math teacher, you did like the budget type thing where they got to a certain budget and they got to spend a certain amount on a car or a house, and I feel like activities like that really help the kids see the importance of math, because, and I think that's easier in like lower elementary, higher elementary, because like once you're into like algebra, it's a lot harder I think to explain. But at the levels that we work with, it's sometimes fun to help the kids learn like ways that they're going to use math in real life.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, we think of, when you're a kid in school, you think these things we're learning we're not going to use. For example, multiplication. But I can piggyback off what you said on a budget. Well, maybe you have a mortgage or rent you pay every month. Well, you're still multiplying, right? Because if you're taking that amount you pay every month and you're multiplying it times 12 to figure out how much you're paying for the whole year, we're still using these skills. And so it really, I say it builds upon each other, you know, year after year for the grades, but even beyond school, we're still using it day by day. And so that's why I think it's really, you know, important for us to continue and get those kids these foundational skills they need to be able to succeed. All right, thank you guys for sharing that. Cheyenne, I'd like to hear your perspective as a third grade teacher. What are some specific challenges that you've observed in your classroom related to multiplication and math skills in general?
Absolutely. So in my classroom, I've noticed a range of challenges that align with a lot of what Jocelyn said. One of the biggest issues is the variability of students' foundational skills. Some of the students come in with a really, really great grasp of math, like basic math, whereas a lot of the other students will not. It's either hot or cold. There's not really an in-between. And with struggling with the simple addition and subtraction, the gap makes it really difficult to teach multiplication, as the students who are not fluent in basic operations have a hard time understanding the more complex concepts. Another challenge is the lack of support at home. I think being a Title I school, we've really realized that a lot of our kids are disadvantaged when it comes to what support looks like at home. And so at 4:30 or 3:30 or 5 o'clock, whenever they leave, that's really when a lot of their support stops. So that means that a lot of students go home, whether it's not having parents or guardians who are able to help them with homework. This could be due to lack of time, resources, or overall their discomfort with math. This means that for many students, the practice and reinforcement they need outside of school is simply just not happening. I've also noticed that language barriers can play a significant role. We have a number of English learners in our classrooms who may understand the math conceptually, but struggle with the language used in word problems. And so that comes into vocabulary and things of that nature. This can lead to confusion and frustration, which further hinders their progress. Lastly, I think engagement is a huge factor. Traditional methods of teaching multiplication like flashcards or timesheets don't always resonate with our students, and they need more interactive and hands-on learning experiences that make math feel fun and relevant to their lives, which kind of goes back into like the learning games or the fun things as far as like, oh, you pay rent for your desk. I see a lot of teachers do that with math in other areas like that.
So those are some really good points, Cheyenne, about those foundational skills and the lack of support at home. Can you maybe provide an example of a particular challenge you faced with a student and how you addressed it?
I had a student before last year actually, and she came in and she was easily frustrated when it came to math. She was very, very good in English. However, she wanted to grasp the concept of math, but it just wasn't clicking. And so I think with her, when it was because of the language barrier. It wasn't that she couldn't understand, it was the words that she wasn't grasping. So I think what we did was Miss Sophia or Miss Mirtha and myself made her flashcards for the vocabulary for math. And so we kind of made it an incentive thing. So for every word she would learn, she'd come in, she'd get a little prize out of the box, and so she was able to collect them over time. And so for her, that was kind of like her thing. It was more of an accountability thing for herself. She knew she wanted to do this. We figured out something that worked specifically for her, and so that was able to help because her parents at home also didn't speak English at all. So she was only getting that at school, so we just kind of reinforced our own thing there with her.
And I think that's great because you made it fun for her to come to school and be excited about learning. I can remember we had a PD last year where a lady came and she was teaching a lesson in Spanish. And so we understand if we're not native Spanish speakers and a lesson is being taught in a different language that you're not used to, you will get frustrated. And not even a language barrier, even if you just don't understand it, you don't know it, day after day you're gonna get frustrated because if those skills are building upon each other, and you didn't get this one skill but we're moving to the next, and we're continuously building on that one skill, it does get frustrating. So I think that's great that you guys took that time and figured out what worked for her. On the other side of that, do you feel like there was anything that you could have done differently or do you feel like what you did helped and it kind of made the rest of the year kind of flow and help her, not become frustrated?
I think the flashcards definitely did help. However, I do think in class, it's important to move slower because at that PD, I do remember I even became frustrated with the instructor and how she was teaching, and so that's something that I constantly now always keep in my mind when I'm teaching, especially for my English language learners. But just to move at a slower pace, not to completely slow down to where I'm missing information or we're behind in lessons, but just to kind of more so meet the student where they're at.
Right. Yeah. And how do you feel like she responded to those strategies you used?
I think it worked well. We saw not the biggest jump, but we did see improvement, and I think that's what we look for
Right.
at all. Is there any improvement? And so from taking that improvement, how could I maybe alter it so that we see even more improvement? So we definitely did see improvement with that.
Okay. Awesome. So that means you noticed some changes in her understanding and engagement in the class.
Yeah, she definitely seemed more confident.
All right, guys. So based on what we've discussed so far, it's clear that we have several key challenges to address. Let's take some time now to collaboratively construct a list of teaching or learning gaps that we believe are impacting our students' ability to master these multiplication facts. I think it's important that we hear from everyone to build this list together. So Jocelyn, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so from what I've observed, and based on the data, I would say that one major gap is the lack of foundational math skills, particularly in basic operations like addition and subtraction. If students haven't mastered these skills, they are, obviously going to struggle with multiplication. So we do need to ensure that our teaching strategies in the classroom reinforce these foundational skills while still introducing new concepts.
I completely agree with Jocelyn. I would add that another gap is related to differentiation. We have a diverse group of learners in our classrooms, and I've noticed that our current instructional methods do not meet the needs of most students, but some students need more time and support to grasp multiplication, while others need more time, more challenging work, to stay engaged. For those early finishers that just get it, finding ways to effectively differentiate our instruction is crucial. I do believe that we do a great job of our small group teaching model.
So building on to what Cheyenne said, I think there is a significant gap in engagement. Many students see math as boring or too difficult, which then affects their motivation to learn. We need to find ways to make multiplication fun and relevant to their lives, maybe through more interactive and hands-on experiences. This could help improve both their interest in math and their overall performance.
Sure. So as we compile this list, I want to make sure that we're capturing all the perspectives. Does anyone have any additional thoughts on gaps that we haven't covered yet?
I think that another additional gap that I think we've noticed a trend with in our last couple of years of STAR data and with math is academic vocabulary for math. I think that reading RLA teachers inherently teach vocabulary more explicitly. It's like a very more common, natural thing for reading teachers to review the vocabulary ahead of time and explicitly teach it and have the word wall and refer back to it. And I feel like sometimes not as much effort is put into math classrooms because there's a lot of emphasis taught on like working out the strategies of working out the problems, how to solve the problem, the cubes method and things like that. But there are some very specific vocabulary terms that go with math.
Yeah.
That if an ESL student or a SPED student can't figure out what that what that word means that goes along with the math problem, then they're already
Right. You've lost them.
Yeah. And so they probably won't be able to figure out how to solve that problem. So that's something that I think we've been talking about focusing on as well.
So you feel like that particular gap exists, and and the factors that contribute to it are that academic vocabulary. Like you said, they explicitly teach it in RLA and reading. But in math, I can remember teaching 4th grade fractions, for example. And although we know as adults what a fraction means, sometimes you ask a student and you'll say, "What's a fraction?" And they're like, "It's a fraction," or they're lost. They don't know what to say. And we know a fraction is part of a whole, right? But they don't necessarily, it doesn't click for them like that. So I think it is important to focus on academic vocabulary in math as well. Word problems. Student can see multiplication, division on a regular problem, but when you get to a word problem, you're right, there are those specific words that might say, how many more, and that tells them what operation they should be doing. So it's like, if you don't understand, yes, they might know the word, but they don't know necessarily what it means and what operation they should be doing. So that's really important as we move forward to be able to focus on that academic vocabulary in the math classrooms as well. Even throughout the school, not just in math, but really in everything. I know they hit it a lot in science too, because in science, a lot of vocabulary happens. But if we can just hit it, throughout the day in every class they're in, whether it's in PE or art or music, they kind of get a better understanding of those words that they need. So,
I think also, taking into consideration that our district has a large EV population. When you think about that, like a lot of the students either, are maybe 1 or 2 years new to the country. At home, the primary language that is spoken is not English, right? So they're not exposed to English language at home or the vocabulary that we would be exposed to at school. They don't have those opportunities at home to talk about it. So there's that gap because it takes a lot of years for a student or child to acquire the English language, right? Like the social aspect of it comes first and then the academic language comes a lot later. So that definitely is going to impact their performance at school, right? Because math, they have to understand, internalize what the problem is saying, what the story is saying, and then apply on top of that, like, okay, now how do I solve it, right? So I think that teachers at our schools need to really enforce or apply ESL strategies for English language learners, right? Like Cheyenne mentioned, with the flashcards, like you're introducing the vocabulary, you're talking slower, right? We're pointing to visuals. We have manipulatives, right? Because we have to keep in mind that our students are English language learners. So I think that can also be, or that aspect can cause gaps, or is causing gaps. And that, applying or if the teachers use those ESL strategies, like that can help bridge those gaps that are there to help support our BLM students.
Alright, so let me ask, Jana, you highlighted several systematic barriers that they face at school, or we face as a school. Given like the challenges and steps, what do you think you can take, or what are those challenges or steps you feel like you can take as an administrator to better support the teachers and the students for these challenges that we face?
One thing that we can do is partner with campus administrators, partnering with the district math coach, Jocelyn, and sort of aligning with what we're looking for in our math classrooms. And maybe for example, that is explicit academic vocabulary for math classes. Maybe it's just going back to the foundational, addition and subtraction. Even with older kids, I feel like any kids can benefit from going back and reviewing. Since you said, that it's math is something that builds upon the skills. And so I feel a lot of times teachers feel pressure to teach on grade level because that's what the STAR test will be, and yes, of course that's true, but we have to also figure in time to go back and teach those steps that maybe were missed or those skills that were not mastered. And I think our model for how we teach in small group and differentiate allows for that, which is, one thing that I do think we see a lot of success in all of our classrooms are teachers spending time and teaching in small groups and the students completing independent work on their laptops based off their diagnostic of what they individually need to work on.
Right.
And that way, that's honestly kind of an easy way to do it because the computer's doing all the work, and then when the student is focused on that, it allows the teacher time to work with the actual student sitting in front of her, and tailor sort of a more strategic approach to what they need to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's great, especially when we look at those technology programs like iReady, like you said, where it kind of is hitting the needs of every student, because we know, yes, we're teaching, and we're hitting the needs of the kids need, and those challenges, but there's some times where we have those gaps where maybe it might be a certain unit and 3 students might be on different, parts of it, and so I feel like since it's, personalized for each student, I think it really hits those gaps in, even if it's from a prior grade level. We know we're teaching 3rd grade, sometimes we're teaching 2nd and 3rd, like maybe there's a skill that they needed before they can move to whatever I'm teaching now. So I feel like iReady and those technology programs are really good at hitting those gaps that the students need.
Another thing that we could do to help bridge, and something that everyone has mentioned, is the lack of resources and support at home, whether it's because the parents don't speak English or they're too busy working their 3 jobs to support the family to sit down and work on math homework, is continuing to keep parents informed. Most kids in all households now have some sort of access to a device, a tablet, something like that. And if we can, I know our open house is coming up, and that's one thing I plan on asking the teachers to share is what are the, a password card that they could send home. Like if you have time in the evening, have them get on iReady or Legends of Learning or something. Because we know that kids are spending a lot of time on tech at home.
Yeah.
And most of the time on undesirable things.
Right.
Educationally undesirable things, but children desirable things. And so I just think about the difference it could make if 15 of those 30 minutes of your iPad time at home could be spent on something educational, reading. Even if it's reading will help the math process as well.
Yeah.
So something like that, and a lot of times I think parents just benefit of the doubt for them. I just think that they don't even know that that's something they could do. And so we'll definitely be sharing that information at our open house, so the parents that can and are willing to can help that way too.
So these are all very insightful observations. So let's summarize the teaching and learning gaps that we've identified so far. I wrote down the lack of foundational math skills and basic operations, the need for differentiated instruction to meet diverse needs of students. However, we do differentiate already because of our small group teaching. We also do pull-outs for all the kids multiple times a week, but just kind of taking that even further. Our low engagement and motivation in learning multiplication. We've implemented those iReady rewards and other things when the students meet their goals, and that's we feel like really has helped those students and motivate them because they like to see when their little person moves on the board, each week that they've met their goal, and getting those rewards. And then lastly, limited access to learning resources and support outside of school. So again, thinking of ways that we can help those parents help us to support those students. Does anyone have anything else to add to the list or any thoughts on these points?
Well, I think we've covered the major gaps well. It's important that we address each of these areas with targeted strategies, and I'm looking forward to discussing potential solutions that can help bridge these gaps.
I agree. Addressing these gaps will require coordinated effort, but I'm confident that we can make significant improvements by working together.
Absolutely. It is about finding practical solutions that we can implement in the classroom and beyond to support all of our students.
And we want to ensure that whatever strategies we develop are sustainable and are consistently being applied across the district, because consistency is the key to making a lasting impact.
Alright, thank you all for sharing your thoughts on those teaching strategies and learning gaps. With these gaps in mind, let's move on to developing some specific strategies that we can implement to improve math performance among our economically disadvantaged and our at-risk students. So based on the challenges that we've already discussed, what are some targeted actions that we can take? I know Cheyenne's talked, a little bit about the flashcards and different things that you did with your student last year. Jocelyn, could you start by sharing maybe some best practices or strategies that can be effective that maybe other school districts or other schools within the district that you've seen maybe or tried as a district math coach? Maybe you've tried it at one campus and one grade level and you feel like it's something that we can implement district-wide.
Okay, sure. One of the strategies that have been successful in other schools is the use of manipulatives and visual aids to build foundational math skills. So by allowing students to physically manipulate objects, they can better understand abstract concepts, which is particularly helpful for multiplication. So to give you an example, using arrays of counters or blocks can help students visualize multiplication as repeated addition, right? So that's really good because you're helping the students conceptualize or really understand the concept behind multiplication, right? I think so many times we forget about that step and we just go straight into the standard algorithm, and then kids struggle because they don't understand the why behind it. Another effective strategy is incorporating technology in a way that is engaging, that's interactive. So there's a lot of apps, online games designed to make learning multiplication fun. And the nice thing is that these tools provide instant feedback, which can help students stay motivated and also track their progress over time. So we have tools like iReady, Legends of Learning, which was mentioned earlier, that we're seeing success with. Additionally, setting up peer tutoring programs has proven to be beneficial. Pairing students who are more confident in their multiplication skills with those who need more practice, can provide the additional support that some students, lack at home. It also helps build a sense of community in your classroom and cooperation with your classroom, so it can even have, positive effects beyond your four walls. Also, the peer tutoring can also help those students that are, your ELLs. You partner a native English speaker with a non-native English speaker, or so forth. So that also helps in that sense. And lastly, for our English learners, developing bilingual resources, like we mentioned earlier, using visual storytelling can also make a big difference. These resources help bridge the language gap and ensure that all of our students can access math content regardless of their language proficiency.
Thank you. So those are great strategies, Jocelyn. Cheyenne, based on your experience, what do you feel would be the most effective strategy to implement in our third grade classroom? I know that we're doing Legends of Learning district-wide, but based on what Jocelyn said, what are some other things you feel like, not that we're not already doing them, but should be consistently used in every classroom throughout the district?
I think starting with manipulatives and visual aids is key, especially for students who are still developing their foundational skills. It's important to make math tangible and less abstract, like Jocelyn said. I've also seen a lot of success with our small group instruction, where I can provide more targeted support to students who are struggling. It's easier to see when the groups are so much smaller. In terms of engagement, I believe incorporating movement and hands-on activities can be very effective. For example, we could use a multiplication hopscotch game or math relays to make learning more dynamic and fun. This approach not only helps students learn, but it also makes them excited about math. I think I did the same thing when I was in kinder. We had an addition card and a subtraction card. They would pick a number 1 through 10, and then they never knew what card they were gonna get. So they were either gonna have to run backwards 5 or run forward 5. So it was on them. But I also think it's crucial to involve parents. and guardians, we could create a series of workshops or resources that provide them with simple strategies to help their children at home. Many parents want to help but don't know how, so giving them the tools they need could make all the difference.
I completely agree with Cheyenne. In addition to those strategies, I think using storytelling and real life scenarios can help multiplication be more relatable. For instance, using stories that incorporate multiplication in everyday life, in everyday situations, can help students see the relevance in math in their lives. Also, incorporating student choice can increase engagement, allowing students to choose the activities or projects they want to work on can make them feel more invested in learning. This could be as simple as letting them pick from a list of math games or decide how they want to demonstrate their understanding of multiplication. Finally, I think it's important to celebrate progress, no matter how small. Recognizing and celebrating students' efforts can build their confidence and encourage them to keep trying, even when the material is challenging.
For sure, and I think we do a great job as a district celebrating our kids when it comes to every little thing. Again, going back to our ready boards, the kids love that. I think we love to move them every Monday and get in there and take a picture and put it on Teams and celebrate those grade levels that have won a prize. Maybe it's they get free dress today or they get popsicles, whatever it is, and tell those other grade levels to keep working hard. I think it motivates the kids because it gets to a point where they're like, oh, second grade got a reward. We gotta hurry up. We gotta get there. And so I think that's great. And just being, like you said, more relatable. Because think about us. You have some people that are book lovers, and there are people that are not. But if we have a book that we like or a specific topic that we like, same way with shows, we're more interested and more wanting to watch it or read it. So same thing with our kids, and I think we do a great job. We have a large variety of books in every classroom. We have classroom libraries, and the kids, I know you guys as teachers, you let the kids pick, whatever interests them. And so I think that's just really great that we do that. You don't see that at every school. So we've talked about the importance of involving parents and supporting math learning at home. And Jana kind of gave some specific ways that we can help better engage the parents in this process. Do you guys feel like there are any barriers within family engagement that we would need to address first before we can kind of put these specific things in place for the parents to be engaged? Or do you feel like it's more of a situation where parents just don't know what to do? So it's just more about giving them resources or ideas to help their child at home.
I think it's a little bit of both. One being language barrier for sure with parents, so making sure that if we are sending resources home, that it's in a language where the parents can understand, because a lot of times parents are not going to sit there and try to Google all of that to make it make sense. And then also I think making sure that we are sending the resources home.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know when we, 2 years ago, we implemented a district-wide remind policy to where every teacher had to have a remind account for parents to join. When we did our end of the year survey, we had a lot of positive feedback from our parents on that they said, I'm so glad you were Remind School, or I'm so glad that my teacher, I was able to access track to my child's teachers through Remind. And then we're asking teachers to weekly send something home. And so, again, we know not every parent is capable of doing something with what we send home, but at least we're providing them with the resources to have the knowledge to do something if they can. And some parents, as you guys know, some parents want more, and some parents don't, have the ability or are not able to help. So we at least provide the resources and send, have open communication to and from parents and teachers with the school. We're at least opening the door for that partnership to be successful for the kids.
And I love that we received that feedback from parents last year, because I remember my first year teaching. Your first year, you might not necessarily know the ins and outs yet. You're learning just like the kids are. And so I think a big thing that I took away from the first year was a lot of the parents would say, I don't know, I wanna help my kid, but I don't know what they're learning week from week. And so that's when I started implementing weekly newsletters, telling the teaks and things that we're learning each week. Because like you said, sometimes parents, it's one thing when they don't know what to do, but then they also don't know what they're learning. So, you know, if kids don't go home and say, we learned about place value today, they won't know.
Right.
So just kind of keeping those parents informed of what their child's learning so that they can, you know, better help them at home. Thank you all for sharing these valuable insights and strategies. To summarize, we've identified several approaches to address the teaching and learning gaps for our economically disadvantaged and our at-risk students here at STEP, so that way they can master third grade multiplication facts. So we've said that we will focus on building foundational math skills with manipulatives, visual aids, and small group instruction, increasing engagement through interactive games, movement-based activities, and incorporating student choice, establishing peer tutoring groups and programs, and providing bilingual resources for our English learners, involving parents with practical resources and workshops to support math learning at home. And lastly, we're going to celebrate our student progress to build confidence and encourage perseverance. So let's work together, like Cheyenne said, working together. We definitely can do that to implement these strategies and monitor their effectiveness over the coming months. So we will set up a follow-up meeting to discuss the progress and any adjustments we may need to make. Thank you all for your dedication and commitment to improving our student success in math. Before we wrap up, does anyone have any final thoughts or suggestions on how we can ensure the success of this plan?
I think it's just, again, open communication and consistency and follow-up, and consistency and making sure that, you know, we all face different challenges and problems that arise every day, and that's just the life of an educator, and no matter what school you're at or what group of children you're working with. And so it can be hard to sometimes stay focused on goals and plans that we put into place, but I think if we all make the conscious effort to focus on this, I really think that we can, you know, see a difference.
And I think it helps to, with having these meetings where the leadership, the principals are analyzing the data from our district and schools, you know, in this case Hillcrest, seeing what the gaps are, and then, you know, getting the coaches involved so that then us as the coaches can know how to better help our teachers. So I think that's a good way to, like Gina said, keep the communication open, and also make sure that there's consistency and follow through in the classrooms. Like that's how we can support you guys as the principals.
Alright, thank you. So this concludes our meeting. I look forward to seeing these positive changes and these strategies that we will bring to our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. 47 minutes.
Woohoo!